If you're just starting out icing cakes, just remember that it's cake, it's not life or death. Be patient, have fun, don't get stressed. I'm Bill Clark. I am from Mimi's Diner in Brooklyn, New York, and today I'm going to show you how to ice and decorate a cake. So first off, we're going to build our cake. Today we're going to be doing a 3-layer cake. I'm going to start with a cardboard round and some masking tape right on my turntable. So I use a cardboard round because it's a really great sturdy base. You can really move the cake very easily. It just sort of gives you a nice landing pad. Now these layers are nice and cold. It's always easier to decorate a cold cake, never decorate a warm cake. And these are already nice and level, but just to make it a little bit more level and a little bit more even. Now one of the tricks that I always do is I lock my elbow into my body and have the serrated knife, and that sort of allows me to cut straight across and not cut at an angle or cut up. So just hold it there and turn it as you go. And because these are really nice and level, I'm literally just shaving off the very top where it was just not quite there. I've leveled my first layer. I'm gonna level all of the layers at the same time so you're ready to go and you can just keep icing all the way through. All of our layers are leveled, and now we're just gonna build a cake. I always love a ice cream scoop, and it helps you get the same amount of icing between every single layer. So I'm gonna do 2 scoops, just like that. And then I'm taking my offset spatula. So I'm starting in the middle, and I'm gonna start pushing the icing out to the sides of the cake, turning my table as I go so you get it nice and even. Once you sort of get it all out to the edges, you can plant the tip of your knife right in the middle of the cake and give it 1 or 2 good turns. So this one I'm just gonna put the cut side down. It's just gonna help keep everything level. You can kind of see where you are. Next, 2 more scoops. So again, we're just gonna push it out to the edges, same deal. This is the final layer. You always wanna make sure that the final layer, you have the cut side down. So you're looking at the nice flat spot, the flat top that was the bottom of the cake when you baked it. Again, 2 scoops. So after you do the top layer of buttercream, just go around the edges with your spatula nice and straight up and down and sort of push the icing into all of the seams on the sides. So I'm gonna take this off, I'm gonna throw it in the freezer for like 5-10 minutes, let the buttercream harden up. This is our chilled cake. It's been in the freezer for just a little bit. Just get your spatula underneath your board. This is also why it's really great to have it on a board, because you can just throw it around. It's really easy to move. Plop it right back down on your turntable. Make sure it's nice and centered on your table. Otherwise, it's gonna be really hard to get the sides even and smooth. There's a million ways of icing cakes, and we're just gonna do 3 of them that I find are super easy. For the first style of icing cake, we're gonna do classic, crisp, straight up and down cake. You already have a pretty good layer of buttercream on the top, so for the finished layer, I'm only gonna put 1 scoop of icing on the top. You're just gonna kinda smooth it out towards the edge. You have to just be a little bit more judicious because you're working with a little less buttercream than you were on the inside on the first round, and then make it nice and smooth. A good tip, I think, for doing this is always putting on more buttercream than you need, because when you're finishing it, it's easier to make it look nice when you're taking buttercream off rather than trying to push more on. So you want to make sure you're building up an edge here, because that's going to give you the ability later to make a nice, smooth, crisp corner. And the great thing about this is the cake is super cold, so it's sticking and it's not going anywhere, it's not slipping down. So now just make sure you're holding your knife really steady and going as close as you possibly can to straight up and down, perfect perpendicular. And you're just gonna hold your knife and turn your turntable. And it's gonna take a couple passes to make sure that this looks nice. And see how I've got some like spots where I'm missing it? It's just throw a little extra on there, it's fine. But if you really want it to look kind of like perfect and smooth and straight up and down, you can use a bench scraper. This one's really nice because you want a bench scraper that has a flat edge so you can put it right on the turntable and not have the handle get in the way. And you can do it's the same idea. It's the same thing. So now that the sides are done, we're gonna go ahead and do the top corner. This is sort of the trickiest technique to learn when you're doing this, to make sure that you are getting a nice crisp edge. It won't be perfect the first time, it's fine. The idea is to have a nice clean knife, don't have a ton of icing on it. It'll make it much easier to get a crisp corner, and go about there and just drag your knife towards the middle. You're just gonna go all the way around and scrape it off. So this is number one here, just classic crisp edges. This is the next technique that I use a lot at the restaurant. I think it's an easy way to make a cake look delicious, and it also hides some of your mistakes, so you don't have to be so meticulous about it. And we're gonna go for like sort of like a rustic, homemade, textured, paleted look. With this technique, you are just gonna put a little bit more icing on in general. I'm gonna put a nice good layer on the top of here to work from. You want it to be level when you start. And so I'm really kind of laying it on here a little bit thicker than I did before. You want a nice layer of frosting to be working from when you're doing this. Make sure you're going back and adding a little bit to the top if you don't have a nice little rim on there. You like doing sort of an S motion, but you do sort of want to just kind of palette it, just scrape it off here and there. And because I'm not going to texturize the top, I'm just going to sort of make sure that we're pretty clean and tidy and smooth. Ta-da! So now we've done smooth side, like rough, homemade palette texture. This one is super easy and will always make your cakes look really nice. So we put it on nice and thick, so we got a nice clean edge around the top already. Now just go ahead and smooth out your sides without taking a ton of icing off. And it doesn't have to be perfectly smooth, because now we're gonna do the texture. Make sure your palette knife is nice and clean. You're just gonna be using the tip of your palette knife, putting it on the base of the cake, and we're gonna go hold it against there, and then you're just gonna slowly move it up the cake, making a spiral all the way around. It looks so much harder than it actually is. That's it. Now you also wanna you wanna run your knife along here, free your bottom edge of your icing up from the turntable. Otherwise, when you take your cake up off, it might pull some of the buttercream off of the bottom of your cake. So now that we've done all of the three icing styles, we're just gonna clean up real quick. And then we're gonna show some simple ways to decorate your cakes. We're gonna start by doing just a little classic shell border on here. These are just easy piping bags to pick up at your craft store or order them online. They're not expensive, but if you find yourself stuck at home with no piping bag, you can always just use the corner of a Ziploc bag. So when you're doing this, just think about, you want the bottom third of the tip to stick out of your bag. If you don't have enough tip inside of the bag, if you cut too much of your bag off, your tip can pop out when you squeeze, and you're just gonna make a huge mess. And just trim off the bottom, and then roll it down. You don't wanna get icing all over the top part of your bag, just to keep yourself nice and tidy, so you're not gonna be dripping all over your cake or all over your counter or rubbing it all over your clothes. And just put a dollop in there. A rubber spatula, this is also really nice to just sort of push it into there, and just go slow, keep it nice and tidy. You just kind of want to dollop and pull, and dollop and pull. The last one is the hardest one here, because you're going to want to hide this tail and tuck it into the other. It's never going to look perfect. Just the aim is to kind of just get it good enough that it hides in there and it's not an obvious mistake. That's it. Food color. I'm just gonna do 2 tonal colors of purple. I have just a classic violet. Start with less dye, then more dye, because you can always add more, but otherwise you're just gonna be wasting buttercream because you'll have to dilute the color. But I'm just gonna kind of put a little bit in there, and then the remainder that I have on my knife is gonna go in that one. And then just work it in with a spatula. And then we have just a little bit less dye in this one, so we're gonna do a little tonal action. Just fill your bag up. Okay, this is gonna be our crazy demo cake. We're gonna put everything on the same cake. It's just not typically what I would do, but here we are. You can use it to do little dots of various sizes. You can get really big with them. You can do little tiny ones. When you're doing this, just keep it down and then pull it straight up as you're still applying just a tiny bit of pressure. That way you can get the nice little pointed kiss on the top. Do like a rosette. And then I have the lighter colored buttercream. This is just a standard round tip, so it doesn't have the little ridges on it. And that's gonna give you like a little smooth kiss. And you can kind of tuck them in there. You're gonna make a mess when doing sprinkles on the side of your cake. I always like to have another separate bowl that I just put under the edge of the cake stand. So to pack it on, you wanna take like a nice little handful and start from the bottom and just sort of push them onto the side. And if you have some holes, it's fine, just go back and push some more on. The other thing that I kind of like sometimes is to do it on the top edge. And just sort of sprinkle it on the top edge and do sort of like a little bit more dense towards the corner. Now we're just gonna do some writing real fast. I like to use one of these smaller bags instead of the big honkin' ones. Go ahead and practice on parchment. You can practice your shell borders on parchment. You can practice all of those things on parchment before you actually put them on your cake. Don't stress out. Everything is fixable, not life or death. Just don't drop your cake, because that's unfixable. We're just gonna do classic script, why not? Just think, ooh, see, I messed up totally. If you mess up like I just did, it's not a big deal. Take your small offset spatula. This is the one that you can use for small dexterous things. Put it flat onto your icing and just scrape it off. And it doesn't matter if you have a little purple on there, you can just scrape the rest of it off, and we're gonna hide it with a little of our white icing. And then you can just go back, just take your time. When you're writing on a cake, just try and make sure you like have an imaginary straight line that you're writing on. As long as your spacing is fine, it's gonna look great. If you're really nervous about it or you just wanna make sure you're getting the spacing right, you can just sort of like sketch it out with a toothpick or a little skewer and then just trace over the lines. So, cutting your cake. Iced it, decorated it, ready to serve it. I use a regular old chef's knife. It's the best for me, I think. And just think about getting into the center of your cake. You want to do it in one swift motion. To not crush your cake is sort of think heel to toe. So put a little bit more pressure like that, and then just the same. There you go. We got pretty decent, even layers of icing. You got a nice, clean, even layer on the outside, on the top. Looks good. So these are just 3 ways to easily ice your cakes at home. Hopefully you feel confident to try them out. You can't make any mistakes. They're super simple.